appreciate your having the hearing today because it's a critical time. And Chief Morgan, welcome to the committee and to you and Deputy Chief Provost and your officers out there in the field. We appreciate what you guys do every day. As we heard earlier, it's under tough circumstances, and to a certain extent, you're working under constraints that make it difficult for you to do your job. I'm going to change the topic a little bit and talk about drugs, and particularly the transnational criminal organizations that bring those drugs across our border. As you know, this Congress, the Senate and the House, has acted. The President has signed legislation called the Comprehensive Addiction and Recovery Act. Senator Ayot's just joined us. She's one of the original co-authors of that. Many members of this committee have been involved with it. It's important legislation. It's groundbreaking. It's really historic in the sense that it focuses a lot on the demand side. And we've had other witnesses before this committee who talked about the importance of reducing the demand for drugs. It focuses on prevention, education, treatment, recovery. It helps to get prescription drugs off the shelves. That's all important. We have an opportunity in the next couple of days here actually to look at new legislation to put even more money into those efforts, and we all think that's important. I believe that's really the core. But there is still a huge issue with these drugs coming across the border. We have the opportunity to be able to increase the price of these drugs by better enforcement. Some statistics that I've seen indicate that we're stopping only about 1.5% to 2% of these drugs that are coming across the border. Recently, we had testimony before this committee indicating that about 100% of the heroin and about 90% of the cocaine is coming across the border. Much of it, of course, from Mexico, particularly with regard to heroin. And even methamphetamines. Most of the methamphetamines are now coming across the border from Mexico. And so, you know, my question to you all is, what can you do better to stop these drugs, increase the price, stop some of the consequences of these transnational criminal organizations, which not only add to crime here in this country, but of course make these other governments, Mexico, Central American countries, Colombia, and so on, much more vulnerable to corruption. And you know, frankly, if you look at these numbers, they're increasing, not decreasing. So I guess my first question to you is, are my statistics right? Are we only stopping about 1 or 2% of these drugs that are coming over the border, this poison that's coming into our communities? Do you think that's accurate?
Sir, first and foremost, I would say, as you know, and you mentioned the amount coming across. We track everything that we apprehend, and you are correct. We are having numbers of methamphetamine, heroin, cocaine, and marijuana crossing our borders. That being said, we use all of the resources that we can to the best of our ability to try to detect and apprehend, whether it be at the ports of entry, at the border, or for Border Patrol agents as well, with our multi-layered approach further into the country. We use our resources such as our canines. We are continuously trying to improve the training for our agents so that we are better at interdicting. That being said, the unknown is a difficult thing to measure for us. We do know that our numbers thus far this year for FY17, year to date, everything has been trending down except for methamphetamines, which is up slightly at this point year to date compared to FY 2016. But we will.
If I could just interrupt you for a second, Deputy. Sure. That concerns us because we see an increase in overdose deaths. We're now seeing about 120 people dying a day in this country, 5 a day in my home state of Ohio alone. Everybody on the front lines is saying the same thing, which is getting worse, not better. And this is the source of the biggest increase, which is heroin. The other one is carfentanil and U4 and the synthetics, which is coming by mail primarily.
Yes.
Which you have less control over, although you guys hear a lot about that too, and the STOP Act, some of us are proposing will help there. But you're saying you're apprehending less of it, and yet we're seeing more of it in our communities.
Well, that is just through the beginning of FY17, so the last 2 months. Our numbers are down slightly, but trending very closely across the board to where we were last year. When we talk about how much we interdict, that is a difficult number to determine because of difficult to say what we don't know. That being said, we use all of the resources that we have to the best of our ability to try to interdict. It is a focus for us. It has been over my entire career within the Border Patrol. We have many more tools now than we did in the past to assist us. We have grown in our capacity with canine officers and such, utilizing other sources to help us.
Deputy, let me just interrupt you again because my time is ending here. You say you're using every resource that you have at your disposal, and yet my understanding is you have not asked for help from Operation Phalanx, for instance, which is a DOD operation and would help in terms of monitoring, would help also in terms of just the transporting, because some of these drugs come in, as I understand it, illegally by air just across the border on small strips. Why are you not accessing some of these DOD resources that are available to you?
So we actually are in dialogue to continue that operation. I know there's...
So you're changing your view on that, and you're going to ask for their help?
From my perspective as a chief of the United States Border Patrol, I agree with you. We need the help.
Do you need additional resources beyond Operation Phalanx to be able to do your job?
Yes.
I think that's important for this committee to hear because, again, I don't know if it's 1.5%, 2% that you're actually able to stop, but it's a very small number. I think you would agree with that. And you indicate you're using all the resources that you have. You have new detection and monitoring capabilities, but obviously it's not working to be able to stop this flow of the poisons. And again, some of it is stopping it, some of it is increasing the cost. Ultimately, I think the cure is going to be more on the demand side, but we've got to be able to do a better job at the border.
Yes, sir, I agree. And it really goes to that threat-based, intelligence-driven, operationally focused approach as well. So we need to increase our counter-network strategies. We need to work through initiatives like Stone Garden with our domestic partners. We need to continue to work with our international partners, Canada and Mexico as well, right? We need to really take the fight to the enemy and stop it before it even touches the border. Those are all things we are doing, but we need to get better at, absolutely.
I'm going to ask you, if you would, to submit in writing to the committee what you need from Coast Guard, from our military in terms of Operation Phalanx and other resources, from DEA, from other federal agencies, and how we can be helpful to you to really begin to make progress on increasing these apprehensions and stopping the flow of some of these poisons. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.